The cafeteria at Camp Pendleton buzzed with the usual energy of young Marines grabbing lunch between training sessions. They moved with the confidence of youth, their uniforms crisp, their bodies strong and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. At a corner table sat an old man, probably in his 70s, with silver hair and a weathered face that told stories of decades past. His crutches leaned against the table beside him as he slowly ate his meal, his hands shaking slightly with each bite. 3 young Marines at the next table noticed him and exchanged glances. One of them, a lance corporal named Davis, nudged his friends and nodded toward the old man. "Check out Grandpa over there," he said, his voice just loud enough to carry. "What's he doing on base anyway?" "This is a place for warriors, not someone who can barely walk." His buddy snickered, and another chimed in. Probably some retired clerk trying to relive his glory days behind a desk. They laughed harder, their youth making them blind to the weight of disrespect they were throwing around. But what they didn't know was about to change everything they thought they understood about service and sacrifice. If you think this is just another story about respecting elders, wait until you hear the truth about who this man really was. Hit that like button and stay with me because this revelation will leave you speechless. The old man didn't react. He'd heard worse in his lifetime, faced enemies far more dangerous than ignorant words. He simply continued eating, his eyes distant, perhaps remembering times when his body moved like lightning and his decisions meant life or death for dozens of men. A few other veterans in the cafeteria shifted uncomfortably, recognizing something in the old man's bearing that these young Marines couldn't see yet. The doors to the cafeteria suddenly swung open and the room fell silent. A 3-star general strode in, his presence commanding immediate attention. Lieutenant General Marcus Richardson was a legend in his own right, a decorated officer who had served in multiple combat zones and earned the respect of every Marine who knew his name. Every person in that cafeteria stood at attention, including the 3 young Marines who had been laughing moments before. General Richardson's eyes scanned the room and landed on the old man in the corner. His stern expression transformed into something else entirely, something that looked like reverence mixed with deep emotion. He walked directly to the table, and to everyone's shock, the general stood at attention and saluted. "Sir," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "it's an honor to see you again." The old man looked up slowly, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. He attempted to stand, but the general gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Please, sir, don't get up. You've earned the right to sit in any room I'm in." The cafeteria remained frozen, every eye watching this unexpected scene unfold. The 3 young Marines who had been laughing felt their stomachs drop, realizing they had made a terrible mistake. General Richardson turned to address the room, his voice carrying to every corner. "For those of you who don't know, this man is Colonel James Ghost Rider Morrison, retired. During the Vietnam War, Colonel Morrison led the most dangerous reconnaissance missions deep behind enemy lines. He saved countless lives, including mine when I was a young lieutenant pinned down in an ambush outside Da Nang." The general's voice cracked slightly. "He took shrapnel to both legs, pulling me and 3 other Marines to safety. He refused medical evacuation until every one of his men was accounted for." The room remained silent as the general continued. "Colonel Morrison earned 2 Silver Stars, 3 Bronze Stars, and a Navy Cross for valor. His call sign, Ghost Rider, came from his ability to move through enemy territory unseen and his willingness to ride into hell itself to bring his Marines home. Those crutches you see aren't signs of weakness. They're badges of honor, earned carrying men like me when we couldn't carry ourselves. Now I want you to pause and think about the judgments we make every day about people we don't know. Drop a comment about a time you learned something unexpected about someone you underestimated. And subscribe to hear more stories that remind us why respect matters." Lance Corporal Davis felt his face burn with shame. He stood and walked to Colonel Morrison's table, his friends following behind. "Sir," Davis said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I apologize for my disrespect." "There's no excuse for what I said." The colonel looked at the young Marine for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Son, you're young, and you haven't learned yet that strength comes in many forms. The strongest thing you did today was owning your mistake. Remember this moment. Remember that every person you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about." General Richardson placed his hand on Colonel Morrison's shoulder. "Sir, I'm having lunch with you today if you'll have me." The old colonel smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "I'd like that, Marcus. I'd like that very much. As the two men sat together, sharing stories and memories, the young Marines returned to their table in silence. They had learned more in those 10 minutes than any training manual could teach them. They had learned about true strength, about sacrifice, and about the difference between looking strong and being strong. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. In a world quick to judge, let's be people who pause to understand. Let's honor our veterans not just with words, but with the respect their sacrifices have earned. Subscribe for more stories that celebrate the heroes among us, the ones we might walk past without knowing the battles they've fought for our freedom. Remember, every person has a story. Make sure yours is worth telling.